all new ideas are really only just combinations of existing ideas. You combine your two concepts and creating a new one. If the ideas that you combine are diverse, if they're very different, if they're unexpected, well, then you greatly enhance the probability that the new idea is innovative.
In this ever-changing world, the secret to creating an unforgettable marketing campaign lies in our ability to cut through the noise, connect with the right audience, and stay current. On this show, we look behind the curtain to learn how the most successful marketing campaigns were created and hear from thought leaders in the industry. Hi, I'm Brett Marchand, CEO of Plus Company. We're a unique partnership of forward-thinking creative agencies. By harnessing the power of collaboration, we make the choices that drive brands forward. This is Partners in Possibility. Today, I speak with Frans Johansson, entrepreneur, author, and the thought leader in the realm of diversity, equity, and inclusion. His best-selling first book, The Medici Effect, makes the case that innovation happens at the intersection of diverse industries, cultures, and disciplines. Over the last 15 years, Frans has shared his methods and tools for diversity and innovation with over 5,000 teams worldwide. Through his speaking engagements and work with his company, the Medici Group, he's put DEI on the CEO agenda. So today, we talk about the foundations of creativity and what it takes to get to new and successful ideas. We discuss how reversing your assumptions can be the key to sparking innovation. We look at how campaigns from Nike, McDonald's, and the NFL have met the moment we're in right now. And of course, we'll talk about what that moment is and what it tells us about the future. Let's get into this because I want to talk about this idea of the intersection and intersectional ideas, especially for our audience, because a lot of them are marketers or they're working in the agency business. And I think that, how you come up with innovative new ideas and your studies around this, I think people would be super interested in hearing more about it. So tell me a little bit about the intersection and where it came from and how it works.
The first thing to know about the intersection and the book that I wrote, The Medici Effect, around it, was that I was really looking at foundational principles around innovation, creativity and innovation. First principles, the type of stuff that would hold true across time, across cultures, in whether you are in a startup, in a large company, in a big team, a small team, doesn't matter. It turns out that there are some of these first principles that absolutely describe and help us understand innovation. The first one is this: all new ideas are really only just combinations of existing ideas. So anything new that you can think of is by combining something that already exists with some other concept. Through that, we create something new. In my book, I talk about all kinds of examples like this. The opening example is around an architect that designs this building in Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, which uses 90% less energy than any other building around it. And the way he did it was by drawing from design principles the termites had when they built their mounds on the African savannah. So you combine your two concepts and creating a new one. This rule has a caveat, though, which is that not all idea combinations are created equal. And so if the ideas that you're combining are very closely connected, if they're obvious, well, then the likelihood of the new idea being innovative isn't that great. What happens if you combine a water faucet with a water hose? Like, you connect them and it's just very difficult to make this into a greatly innovative idea. Your mind will instantly connect to this. I said those words, and you can imagine it, right? But if the ideas that you combine are diverse, if they're very different, if they're unexpected, well, then you greatly enhance the probability that the new idea is innovative. And so this is where we get a concept like termites in architecture, or if you're looking to improve how to send satellites into space. The size of those satellites really matter, but you can improve the design of them by looking at how you use the mathematics of origami to design origami figures. Well, Today, they can sort of design satellites using this type of mathematics to make them more and more compact, the way you would fold these satellites and solar panels on these satellites. Two very different fields, you combine them and you're creating something new that is quite innovative. This tells us something about the intersection, because what the intersection is a place where different fields and cultures and disciplines meet. And that means that the ideas that you recombine there tend to be very different. And is why it enhances the probability of success. So that's the first idea around the intersection that I think is really powerful. But there's a second one as well, which is that the more ideas that we can come up with, the more ideas that we can generate, the better the probability we'll come up with a good one. Right. Einstein wrote over 240 papers. Picasso made over 50,000 works of art in his lifetime, right? Thomas Edison had over 1,000 patents. And you will see this notion over and over again. And the reason why we see this is because actually our ability to predict what works or not does not work is actually quite low. And so people that are looking to break new ground understand this, either directly or intuitively. And so they keep on trying, either they try a lot of concepts with the same idea. We call those pivots, pivot, try to figure out what works or doesn't. Or they try a lot of different ideas. This is kind of where venture capitalists, that's something that they try to think of. Or you find the same thing with hit makers, artists, and so on. And at the intersection, the number of idea combinations you have access to is not additive. You don't add the number of idea combinations between the two fields that you're connecting. You multiply them. So you have access to just an exponential increase of really powerful ideas from different areas. So these are some of these foundational principles. However you think about innovation or however you think about creativity, however you think about breaking new ground, ultimately, you cannot really escape these rules. The more diverse the combination, the higher the probability of success. And the more ideas you develop, the higher probability you're going to hit upon one that actually works.
The internet right now, I mean, it used to be a wide open space where you could explore different areas, and I think which was so powerful about the internet. And now, we're using algorithms to get people to only spend time with the kinds of content they see, narrowing it in. And if we were smart, we'd go back to Stumble Upon and actually have people be exposed to other ideas and other concepts and other cultures, et cetera. It would actually make us more productive, more innovative, as you say. Not all idea combinations produce the kind of innovation we're looking for. So how do you best create the circumstances for diversity and creativity? It may be additive through energy and teamwork, and can have an extraordinary result when put into action. Making use of unorthodox thought processes to get to new ideas can help generate a brand message that lasts a lifetime. You talk about another concept I thought was very interesting, which is reversing your assumptions, right? So tell us a little bit about reversing your assumptions, because it is something I've seen used in our business before. Sometimes strategists will take it to creatives and say, well, let's turn this on its head and see if we can come up with something. But I think your approach to this is super interesting, and I do think it's a skill that people could use more often.
And the way it works is this: whenever you approach any given problem or opportunity, there's all kinds of assumptions that you have built in as to what you need to do to pursue those. Yeah. And you may not even reflect upon it, right? And so you don't really examine what a solution could look like outside of that assumption. So for instance, let's say that you try to come up with a new restaurant. One of the assumptions that you might make about that is that the restaurant should serve food, because obviously, what else does the restaurant do? It serves food. So you don't even question that assumption. Reversing of assumptions means that you list out some of those assumptions, and then you reverse those and see how you can make the idea happen anyway. What would a restaurant look like if you can't serve food?
Right. And
all of a sudden now, a whole host of new ideas might come up. Maybe the food is really done in a way of drinks, and so there's these sort of extra nutritious or whatever it is. The point is that you're not coming up with ideas that you wouldn't have otherwise. And it's an extremely effective way to force yourself into the intersection. This is definitely something that can be trained. And you might start with yourself before you start doing this in meetings, but ask yourself, well, wait a minute. What if I just assumed that this was not here? This limitation did not exist. I just simply, this assumption that I'm making about how we're going to solve this problem, I'm just going to reverse it. We have, we have one, we have one big customer that we're trying to solve for. Well, I'm going to reverse the assumption. We don't. We have 10. Now, all of a sudden, what ideas do you come up with in that with that setup? And are there some of those pieces that you can bring back to your situation?
Mm.
It's very, very powerful. And yeah, I recommend it highly.
Tell me a little about some of the companies that you admire that you've seen use this idea of the intersection in order to drive innovation.
Yeah. So I think that the place where this happens most broadly is when we start thinking about diversity in terms of people, so age, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and so on, and basically the who of the people, and then the what they are doing. So the function, the industry, the education.
Right.
If you just focus on those two, you have a very fertile ground to explore intersections. And one company that we worked with since 2008 is Disney.
Often held up as a great innovative company, obviously.
Great innovative company. They've been on the forefront of what it means to understand that the people in sort of their target group are more diverse and look for more inclusive content than ever before. When it comes to really any type of product almost, the world isn't where the average is. And we can look at the average sentiments around the world and feelings around the world and say, well, this is where the world is at. Well, that's incorrect. So Disney had a sense of this early. We were definitely part of that journey with them. It's been just amazing to see that translate into, we work with over 10 divisions or units within Disney, and you can sort of see these ideas hitting ultimately the marketplace. On the other hand, you also see it across functions and across industries. They have a unit at Disney called Imagineering. It's their R&D shop, effectively. It's just amazing that people, artists, designers, sound engineers, computer graphics, like on and on and on from lots of different disciplines. And yeah, we worked with them basically since 2008. This idea of bringing these disciplines together, bringing these different industries together in order to create new, compelling experiences. They're literally the best in the world at it, but it's not an accident. It's not an accident. They've always understood the power of taking approaches and methodologies and technologies and recombining, building on it in the service of experience. So that's a company, in my mind, that has really figured out what it means to live at the intersection. Doesn't mean that they're perfect in every regard or that they can't improve, but they've been around for 100 years. So and done quite well throughout that journey. So
I've been working with you for 14 of those years.
Yeah, that's right.
We're going to take a quick break. When we return, we'll discuss how two major brands, Nike and McDonald's, have incorporated diversity and inclusion into their brand messaging to drive growth. We'll discuss why these campaigns set the standard for why inclusion is not just the right thing to do, but also the smart thing to do. Welcome back to Partners in Possibility. I'm Brett Marchand. Frans Johansson, founder of the Medici Group, and I were just discussing how the combination of diverse ideas, backgrounds, and perspectives drives innovation. We were also talking about how it can lead to future profitable and equitable brands through inclusion. These collaborations and ads drove each respective brand forward while maintaining authenticity. You also, I know you did an interview with Jason Maiden from Nike, and I'm a huge Nike fan. It's one of our clients, but tell me a little about Nike and what makes them so innovative.
After the book came out, they talked about these ideas. They were one of the first companies that reached out and said, like, can you help structure our thinking around this? Um, and uh, and it was very powerful because to them the idea was this. They were really honing in on diversity and inclusion. They said, listen, here's what we want at Nike. We want this concept to be a driver of brand, of innovation, of product, of marketing, of positioning. Like this is what should drive this should drive that. These are not separate processes. This is not something that we do in isolation. These are really connected. Jason, you mentioned Jason Maiden. He ran. He was the head designer for the Air Jordans for quite some time. He's gone on to do a whole bunch of other amazing things. Um, and we actually had it. We brought him in for a summit that we had created a number of years ago, and he was talking about the inspiration of designing Air Jordans. This was and designing a shoe around Derek Jeter, the baseball player, and the vision he had in his mind, right, was Batman. So he's combining the notion of Batman, of baseball, of Derek Jeter, borrowing from a lot of different cultural influences in a way that I think would have been difficult if you weren't open to where you can draw your source of inspiration. He's gone on since then to have a huge impact on Black communities in the Bay Area, and ensuring that organizations can tap into these type of diverse perspectives in order to up their game. But this has been part of, I think this has been part of how Nike's thought about their opportunity sets for a long time.
It's probably a good time to pivot to talk a little bit about brands, just because we talked about Nike, and the NFL actually did their own ad during the Super Bowl this year, which was super interesting. I mean, they picked a woman who happened to be Mexican, who played flag football, not regular football, and talked about women, pushing the sport forward. And it was a really interesting ad. What did you think of that?
I saw the ad. And what was my reaction when I saw that? What it tells us about the moment we're in right now and how brands should be thinking about it. Why why this ad? What was it about this that makes this really relevant? And I come back to this idea that demographically, if you're looking at where we are heading demographically, uh, companies today are going to, any company, any organization is going to have to step up the game around inclusion. So that's my first point. The second piece is, how do I communicate to you that I do value inclusion? Like, how do I do that in a way that matters? Well, in the past, I would say that companies could kind of get away with bare minimum. you know, like, yeah, we just got to show something here and we're good. But that's not good enough today. Today, it has to be placed with a real stake behind it. This got to be so 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 that's what I think that ad represents. It's not that, oh, we gave a donation to a women's group that did this, and we'll put that up we'll make a tweet about it. The point here is that this is this is how the world is evolving right now, and I want to explain just a little bit why. You know, right now today, there is a lot of confusion going on between, are we in a recession or not? What about unemployment rates, employment rates, inflation? All these things are not behaving the way they're supposed to. What does this really indicate? And in my mind, it really indicates something that is not talked about much, and it has direct implication on inclusion. What it indicates is this. Right now, over the next 10 years or so, and we know this, we can predict this, the number of people that are in a working age are going to be dropping in the United States. This is true all over the world, by the way. So I'm not. We can make a global argument out of this. And on top of that, you're going to see more and more demand for labor because more companies are reshoring. They want to shorten their supply lines, so they're bringing manufacture other things back to the United States. You see companies outside the United States opening up offices and plants in the United States because they don't have enough workers. Japan has been doing this for a long time. So what does all of this tell us? It tells us that the demand for talent and labor is going to be high. It's not going to go away. And that also means that this talent can place demands on what type of environment they want to be in. And the environment they want to be in is going to be increasingly inclusive and open for diversity.
Right.
That's how all these things hang together, like a network of cause and effect. And so that's what we have to be thinking about. The bar for people today that are in Gen Z, millennials, as to what they want from the companies they work at, or the ones from the companies that they buy stuff from or watch stuff with, is that it's going to be more diverse and inclusive because they are more diverse and inclusive.
The Hispanic population is growing the fastest, I think, in the U.S., and it's younger, as you say. So that's also why it was brilliant.
From that perspective, hitting a specific segment, I think that is true. But the larger idea is this idea that NFL is open for diversity. It's introducing something. The discussion used to be around white and black. It's kind of opening that aperture now a little bit broader. It used to be about men and women. Like you're seeing this aperture widening, and you're going to see more and more of this happening. I think that's going to hold true for virtually every single entity out there if you draw the timeline out far enough.
I think that's actually one of the most interesting things about that campaign, because it was, it ran at halftime, as you know. And given that game was about the first time two black quarterbacks were going to play against each other, and given the backdrop of everything else that was going on, the fact that they actually pivoted and didn't talk about, black and white, and actually talked about female and Hispanic, and again, did it in a very interesting way, given she was the hero of that ad, I thought was, took a lot of guts. I'm sure that wasn't the obvious way to go, given everything else that was going on in the world. So I hope somebody inclusive or with a different point of view must have been in the room when they came up with, that thought.
I believe so. I don't think this was the obvious ad for the NFL to run. I agree with you there.
So what about the future? What do these campaigns tell us about the moment that we're in right now? How can we harness the power of diversity to drive innovation within our own marketing initiatives? Another campaign, and we had a little bit to do with this, but I'm interested in your point of view, which is McDonald's. So I think McDonald's has had this program now around meals that started with Travis Scott. Actually, this has been done by the advertising has been done by Wyden & Kennedy, by the way, which is a great independent firm and done some of the best work around the world. Speaking of Nike. We work with them on helping to pick, the people that are actually going to create these meals. So started with Travis Scott, then it was BTS, it was Mariah Carey for Christmas, which was a huge hit. So the latest meal, which was done for Valentine's Day, was launched during the Super Bowl. Was Cardi B and Offset, and showed a real diversity of couples in the advertising, as you saw. So interested in what's your take on that?
It plays with something that I think about all the time. It is about who are we today, and McDonald's has always been about America. Like everybody in America, everybody can go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the message that this is bringing across. And when you bring it to couples, you add on a whole new dimension, which I thought was interesting, right? You previously we were talking about race or age or country or something like that, but here you're also talking about couples in terms of are you interracial? Are you gay, lesbian, or are you? So like you can just it enables you to further broadening the discussion around who is represented in 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 the United States today. And so that to me was the again was the takeaway, but it's actually it's a sign. This idea, this notion that this is backlash. It's too woke. But ask yourself what would happen if one did that. You do a campaign where there's no diversity in it.
Right.
Like just if you visualize it, what would happen? Like, like it's not about what one's desire or one thing. It's simply about where the world is heading. These are forces that no one person, no one country can stop.
Yeah.
These are massive forces that have been in the making for decades.
Well, and I think one of the most interesting things about the campaign in general, like think about these meals in general, whether it be, Mariah Carey or BTS. I mean, it's a Korean boy band, right?
Yeah.
So what McDonald's has done is bring these celebrities together around their their favorite meals, and then in turn serves that to people, obviously. And even those meals in general, by the way, are pretty diverse. Travis Scott did fries with barbecue sauce, etc.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel forced to me, right? Because
No.
nobody said, "Oh, we're doing a meal," and by the way, it's a Korean boy band. I mean, it was BTS, and so you've got
BTS has hit it big, right? And not only that, right? That fact is also in the zeitgeist. In other words, there's a particular way that these things unfold. I also believe that is very true. There is a moment where Korean culture is finding a broader appeal. And eventually it will just be sort of incorporated and be part of what is happening in the world. There's going to be something else. There's going to be another piece. A couple of years ago, Spotify helped really drive a massive explosion of Latin American music, and you would see a lot of ads and campaigns that will sort of play off of that. So this, like, if you just take a moment and reflect upon how many cultures are there in the world, how many countries, right? This is going to keep on going for a while. We're going to basically go into, it's going to be something else. And it's usually driven by some unexpected circumstance, right? BTS has made it big. You got Squid Games. You combine all that, and there's a Korean moment, and you're seeing an explosion of TV shows and content and other things from South Korea. As I said, over time, that's going to switch into something else.
Being inclusive and being diverse, not just being the right thing to do, but actually being the smart thing to do in order to innovate, in order to bring better ideas to the world. You started this whole discussion around termites and architecture and how, it can use a lot less energy. I mean, if we have one problem in the world right now, it's climate change. And if we don't bring that kind of diverse thinking to the table, we probably will never solve what's probably the world's greatest threat right now.
That's right. To me, that has always been the case. When going back to my parents and going up to how I grew up, of course, the idea that no matter what your background is, there needs to be equity, there needs to be inclusion. All of these things, these are things that my mom talked a lot about. Maybe didn't use those words because they've been added later, but that's what she was talking about. The opportunity. Whenever she felt that I in school, and it happened a couple of times, I was just not given the opportunities because the teachers would assume that I just wouldn't get it. I mean, she would come in fighting. I mean, she'd be Rocky 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and the sequels beyond that. But she would really fight for my opportunity to get the best teaching, get the best materials, and so on. But what I remember in terms of the larger idea wasn't just that. It was what I saw in the interactions between my parents, which I was very fortunate. They were two people that really built upon all that they brought together to us as a family. And so that was really been sticking in my mind. It was multiplicative. It's not a word I use often, but here we go. And so, yeah, we look to solve climate change. How are we going to do it? It's not going to happen by just looking at it from one perspective. It's not going to be just one industry. It's not going to be one scientific discipline. It's not going to be one country. It's going to be all of those things, and it's going to be global. So what do those teams look like? What do those problems look like? What are those solutions? Who thinks of them? Who drives them? Who makes them happen? Diverse teams.
Listen, Frans, we're grateful and lucky that your parents were who they were, because they brought you to the world and you brought this thinking around. I'm a huge fan, and we are trying to use this kind of thinking in our company every single day. So thank you for spending this time with us. Thank you for your ideas and your inspiration. And I look forward to many other conversations in the future.
Thank you, Brett. I really love this conversation. So looking forward to the same.
That was my conversation with Frans Johansson, DEI thought leader and founder of the Medici Group. I hope you gained valuable insights as to where your next brainstorming session can go, whether across teams, by reversing your assumptions, or solidifying your team's inclusion initiatives. Next week, we'll speak with Dor Sculler of Intuition Robotics and Chin Lee of Fuse Project. We'll be discussing their partnership to bring LEQ to market. So what is LEQ? Well, it's small enough to sit on your coffee table, but powerful enough to be the ultimate companion. LEQ is an emotionally intelligent, AI-fueled personal assistant designed for a very niche and very special audience, the elderly. This is a fascinating discussion about smart design, the smart marketing for a completely new brand, and new technology. But bringing LEQ to life and into homes wasn't easy. Fuse Project and Intuition Robotics face challenges in LEQ's development, design, and marketing. You'll learn more about those next week. We'll see you then.